In 2015, a strange woman stopped me at the entrance of my law office, claiming there was a hidden truth to the case I was handling. The evidence in that case was undeniable. The lower court had already handed down a death sentence. There was no appeal, and it was in the final stages of execution, review virtually a done deal. Yet she suddenly appeared at this critical moment. I asked, "Are you a witness?" Her answer was something I would never forget. "No, I am the evidence." In the winter of 2015, our law firm took on a legal aid case initially assigned to my colleague. It was a premeditated murder case, first filed in 2000. Back then, investigative technology was primitive, and social network tracing yielded no clues, so the case hung unresolved for over a decade. It wasn't until a month prior that a crucial lead emerged, helping to solve it. With clear evidence and brutal methods, and despite a late confession, there were no other mitigating circumstances. By the time the case reached us, there was almost no room for legal assistance. The trial phase was merely a formality. My colleague, who was in charge of the case, unexpectedly had to go on an out-of-town business trip, leaving me to handle its conclusion. I was busy with many things myself. I took it on, but didn't pay much attention, only glancing over the situation. I hadn't even looked at the file. Then one day, a strange woman stopped me at the law office door, insisting there was another hidden truth to the case and she needed to tell me immediately. I glanced at her, thinking she was probably trying to intimidate me. As I walked, I asked, "Are you a witness?" This case was so old that there had been no witnesses even in the initial trial. Who would have thought someone would appear after it was all but settled? But her answer surprised me. "No, I am not a witness. I am the evidence." What a strange thing to say. I stopped and turned to look at her. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes dirty, as if she had just completed a long, arduous journey to reach me. Through her tangled hair, I saw young, sorrowful eyes, and an indescribable premonition welled up inside me. So, I led her into the office's reception room. "How should I address you?" "My name is Joanna. I'm 24 years old this year, studying abroad in the US, and I only returned home last month." To prove she wasn't lying, she showed me her national ID card, her domestic university diploma, and a certificate of enrollment from her foreign university. I quickly scanned them and saw they were all from top institutions. She truly was an exceptional young woman. "Hello, Ms. Joanna." I returned her documents and got straight to the point. "I'm very busy today, but given that this concerns human life, I've canceled my other appointments. We have the whole afternoon. Please tell me your story." How does a person become evidence? "Thank you, Attorney Luke." She quickly smoothed her hair, her face tense and urgent. "First, I want to say that I've always believed strange things exist in this world. From childhood, many secrets have been hidden around me. I constantly replayed the past, trying to clarify everything, but I could never grasp the truth. Only now do I truly have the answer. This answer is very important to the case, please, you must help me." "Please go on." At that moment, I still didn't realize how profoundly this case would shake me. Joanna's story, Part 1. It all began with my father, Victor, and the fireworks factory. I still remember my father. He was gentle, calm, and never ostentatious. My mother married him very young and gave birth to me early. Their relationship was neither fervent nor cold. Much like many ordinary couples, there was no intense passion, just the mundane routine of daily life. Father worked as a quality inspector at the fireworks factory in our district, a technical job. Perhaps the nature of the work itself easily caused resentment, and coupled with his stubborn personality, his relationship with the workers wasn't good. Every day after work, while others gathered in groups, Father was always alone. His slender figure at the village entrance resembled a proud scholar. Once I went to the fireworks factory to find Father, only to witness him being cornered and beaten by several workers. Compared to those large, coarse workers, Father was too frail, but even knocked to the ground, unable to fight back, he refused to beg. I was very young then. Seeing my father beaten with my own eyes, I cried out in fear. The workers turned, saw me crying, found it amusing, and stopped their assault, but still surrounded Father, preventing him from leaving. Father lay on the ground, looking through the gaps between them to see me, his eyes red-rimmed before he turned away. To be beaten defenseless in front of his daughter was truly humiliating. Just then, the director's son passed by, shouted a few words, and cleared the way for Father. The workers, all fearful of him, scratched their heads, laughed awkwardly, and dispersed as if it had been a harmless prank. The director's son was named Shawn. He was 2 years younger than my father. He helped my father up, but it looked more like he was lifting him. Shawn was robust, making my thin father appear even more shrunken beside him. The contrast between the two was stark. Shawn glanced at me, then smiled and said to father, "So weak, how can you protect your wife and child?" Father stood there, trembling, without replying. The differences between them weren't just physical. Shawn was the only son of the current director, the future heir of the fireworks factory. His family was wealthy, powerful, and influential, so his actions and gestures were natural and uninhibited, while my family struggled. Father working alone at the factory didn't make things any better. My mother was frail and had a lame leg, her medical expenses each year were considerable, and we had no savings. Every penny had to be carefully accounted for. Father quietly thanked him, then limped toward me, took my hand, and we left. That day, Mother was home making my favorite scrambled eggs with onions. At a glance, she saw Father covered in bruises, a dark shoe print on his chest, head bowed in despair, leading me, who was still sobbing. Understanding what had happened, Mother became furious. While Father was bathing, she grabbed her cane and went straight to the fireworks factory, standing at the entrance of the large workshop, demanding to know who had beaten her husband. But her voice trembled, lacking authority. Yet she stubbornly refused to leave. In the end, she didn't find those workers, but Director Chen paid compensation. My mother was just a housewife, usually never stepping out of the house, yet she dared to march aggressively to the factory. It was a very brave act. After all, the local fireworks factory director was very influential, a prominent figure in the district. Mother was brave that one time, but later she regretted it deeply. However, people cannot always remain rational. It is often only after enduring all the storms that one looks back and realizes many hasty choices made at critical moments ultimately lead to a predetermined outcome. Here is the story of the fireworks factory. The small town where I was born was in a mountainous region, and its main industry was fireworks. The fireworks factory was also the largest factory there, holding a monopoly, providing many jobs, and being a major taxpayer for the district. The factory produced fireworks that were sold nationwide in large quantities every year. Local residents also loved setting off fireworks for all big and small celebrations. But my family never bought fireworks. Even though my father, as an employee of the fireworks factory, could buy them at an internal price, he still didn't. Fireworks were too expensive, they burned once and were gone, a flamboyant yet useless luxury. That money would be better spent on nutritious food for Mother. I loved fireworks, and I understood my family's difficult circumstances, so I often ran around the village to watch neighbors light them. Although I always got to see them, the feeling was completely different. Lighting them myself meant I could generously share with everyone, like inviting guests home, but watching others light them felt like begging under someone's eaves, always making me uncomfortable. The boy next door once rudely blocked me, preventing me from watching his family's fireworks, saying my family was dirt poor and only knew how to freeload. I said, "If I can't watch, then I won't," turned and walked away. I didn't care about those things. I thought it was enough just to have the whole family together. Being poor was fine. But even that small wish was cruelly taken away by fate. As soon as I turned 5, everything silently portended what was to come. When I was 5, on a summer afternoon, Father sat under the eaves teaching me how to solve the 9 linked rings puzzle. This was an ancient intellectual game, far more effective than fireworks. Father held my hand, patiently explaining each step of the solution. But I had no aptitude for it, nor was I eager to learn, merely watching indifferently and understanding nothing in the end. The summer wind was too hot, and cicadas buzzed incessantly. I was very sleepy, but Father kept talking. He told me the 9 linked rings were interlocked, but not a simple linear structure. The rings were linked by a horizontal bar, and 9 circles passed through a hollow handle, forming a complex, interwoven structure. Solving the 9 linked rings doesn't start from the first ring, but from the 9th, gradually moving from back to front. Father continued, "Sometimes, life is like the 9 linked rings. Many unavoidable things follow one another, like rings shackling a person. They drag your steps, and only when countless intertwined links are unraveled can the hidden mystery within truly be understood." Father read many books and often told me mysteries of mountains, rivers, seas, sun, moon, and stars, which I listened to enthralled. Only this time, Father spoke in confusing, strange words. I didn't understand anything, then suddenly saw Father look up, his face solemn and profound. He slowly spoke a sentence, only his mouth moving, no sound escaping. I immediately sobered up, frightened to the point of tears. I didn't know what he said. I was just scared by his expression. It wasn't an expression a living person should have. In that moment, Father became utterly unfamiliar, like an emotionless clay statue. This is the first strange thing I want to tell. In fact, when we are young, because our brains are not fully developed, we often can't distinguish between dreams and reality. This strange incident might have just been a dream, but even if it was a dream, it couldn't be dismissed. I always believed that some dreams bring guidance. I don't know if it was because the scene was too bizarre or for some other reason, but I've never forgotten it since I was 5. Father soon returned to normal, and I quickly forgot about it. Looking back now, it was indeed an omen. Also, at that age, I witnessed the most spectacular fireworks display of my life. That night, several loud explosions woke the entire town, and then half the sky lit up with brocade crown fireworks, willow fireworks, golden willows, glittering willows, exploding willows, waterfalls, and countless red and green paper scraps flying everywhere. Those were colored paper fireworks. Countless clusters of fireworks of different shapes shot into the air, interwoven chaotically, vying to explode across the night sky. Dazzling lights like shooting stars filled the sky, accompanied by booming explosions and crackling sounds like thunder, even earth-shattering roars. The flickering lights and spreading gray smoke covered the sky, obscuring the clouds. Colored paper flew wildly in the whistling wind. A wave of air slammed against my window, making a thud. I woke up with a start, groggily went to the window to gaze at the dreamlike, celestial scene. After standing motionless for a long time, I slowly came to my senses. The fireworks were beautiful, but I couldn't hold back my tears. Because that night, Father had gone out and never returned. It was a night in November 1996, 3 months before the Lunar New Year. No one would set off fireworks like that. Therefore, it could only have been an accident. The explosion occurred at the overflow warehouse, where the fireworks factory stored defective products. This warehouse was not part of the factory, but was built next to a pond on the other side of a forest. That area was vacant land, often used to dispose of faulty fireworks, and few people went there. After the warehouse exploded, it didn't affect the surrounding area. Besides Director Chen, only my father held the key to this warehouse. The accident happened at 11:00 p.m. Many people were asleep, woken by the explosion, and bewilderedly watched a grand fireworks display. Everyone quickly put on their coats and headed towards the pond to see what was happening, including my mother and me. My mother limped through the crowd, unable to suppress her sobs halfway there. Arriving at the scene, we saw the warehouse blazing furiously, radiating waves of heat. Above, a murky, unsettling haze lingered, the aftermath of the fireworks fading. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder, stinging everyone's eyes. Villagers held my mother back, preventing her from getting closer. Mother sat on the ground, weeping uncontrollably. The scene was quickly cordoned off and the fire extinguished. Police found a charred body at the accident site, burned beyond recognition. The sight was too gruesome to bear. However, they quickly gathered a lead from the villagers. They found my mother standing behind the crowd. After a brief calming, the investigation began. A young officer named Lou asked her, "At what time did your husband, Victor, go out?" Mother replied, "Around 10:00 p.m. He said there was a faulty batch of products wrongly recorded in the books and he needed to check it." The officer continued, "Why did he go so late?" She answered, "I don't know." The officer questioned, "Your husband went out late at night and you didn't even ask anything, just let him go?" Mother said, "I listened to everything he said. I never doubted him." The officer was silent for a moment. Mother's testimony was corroborated. Everyone knew the warehouse was managed by my father, and indeed, someone had seen him walking alone towards the warehouse. Besides my father, only Director Chen had a key. But at that time, he was playing mahjong far from the accident site, his bunch of keys still attached to his belt. The answer seemed too obvious. Officer Lu's gaze lingered on Mother, about to ask something more. Mother, still crying, said, "Don't ask any more. I just want you to tell me that the person who died isn't him." Officer Lu had been Mother's middle school classmate. He looked at her and sighed, "You've really changed a lot, haven't you?" The next day, through identification and multifaceted examination, the police officially identified the victim. When I was 5, my father was killed in that fireworks warehouse explosion. The cause of the accident was also quickly investigated and determined to be an unexpected incident. The overflow warehouse contained many faulty fireworks yet to be disposed of. Some propellants and explosives inside had leaked. When father was inspecting, metal dust was stirred up, suspended in the air. My father, not paying attention, had not fully extinguished his cigarette butt, leading to a dust explosion and subsequent fire. The burning metal dust was already colorful enough, yet the heavens and earth seemed to find it insufficient, causing the explosion to blow off the roof, launching all the fireworks into the air to bloom, inviting everyone to gather and witness. My father died a gruesome death under that beautiful fireworks display. When the charred body was carried out, Mother, afraid I would be frightened, pulled me aside and covered my eyes with her hand. But I still saw it. Even a brief glimpse from afar was an extreme shock. Bizarre fireworks, father burned, an endless duration of grief. I thought this must be the end of the world. Otherwise, how could life possibly continue? I couldn't even cry out. Afterward, the factory investigated the root cause of the accident. This type of safety incident had occurred twice before, both times resulting in injuries. After all, fireworks production was considered dangerous work, but such things had never happened in the middle of the night, nor with such a spectacular display. So why did father go to the warehouse in the middle of the night? All the fireworks factory workers said father went to the warehouse that night to steal fireworks. He couldn't afford them, so he wanted to use his position to exploit a loophole. To ensure the fireworks he stole wouldn't cause problems, perhaps he even intentionally classified standard products as defective during work. Once he did this, accumulating a batch of standard goods hidden in the warehouse, finding an opportunity to sell them privately for profit wouldn't be surprising. After all, Director Chen rarely visited the overflow warehouse. Father was the one who actually used it. If he wanted to act out of personal favoritism, he had all the necessary conditions. Now, to end up like this, one could only say it was fate's cruel twist. I was too young, only having known father for 5 years. I wouldn't dare say I understood him well, but I felt father wouldn't do such a thing. If father truly went to steal fireworks, it must have been for me. I loved fireworks and often went to watch others light them. After being stopped by the neighbor's son from watching, outwardly I pretended not to care, but at home, I cried feeling wronged. Father saw my distress and felt pity for me, so leaving the house in the middle of the night must have been for my sake. My craving for something I shouldn't have wounded father's self-esteem. All of it also killed him. After thinking it through, I finally sobered up. At the funeral, I cried endlessly looking at father's picture. Outsiders only knew I had deep affection for my father. They didn't know I cried out of guilt. I also didn't dare to tell mother. Visitors whispered and gossiped, pointing at father's coffin. They spoke as if it were true. Mother weakly offered a few defenses, but the villagers remained silent, only sitting numbly by the coffin, burning paper offerings. I sat next to mother. The neighbor's son, even at this moment, wouldn't leave me alone. He ran close to my ear and whispered, "Your dad was a thief, served him right." I trembled with anger, snatched a half-burnt paper offering from the brazier, and threw it at him. Father had died in pain amidst fierce flames, amidst everyone's gossip, in the most outwardly spectacular yet humiliating way. That outward splendor, that most brilliant fireworks display, seemed, in contrast, like a whimsical trick of reality. Many people came to pay their respects, and Officer Liu was also there. He saw Mother's bewildered expression at the loss of her support, deeply moved, but could only advise her to overcome her grief quickly. After all, she still had a child to raise and needed to regain her spirits swiftly. When Director Chen and his son entered the morning hall, silence suddenly fell. Director Chen, a middle-aged man over 50, exuded an imposing aura. Even without anger, he commanded authority. Everyone seeing him dared not speak, but this time, his expression was quite gentle. He carried a thick paper packet containing 30,000 asterisk dong in cash. He patted my mother's shoulder lightly and sighed, saying, "I don't care why young Victor went to the warehouse that night. In my heart, he was still a good boy, simply facing unavoidable hardship. A single coin cannot topple a hero. I believe young Victor's nature wasn't bad. Don't pay attention to what others say, just raise your child well. With that, he pushed the paper packet into my mother's lap. Director Chen said he didn't care, but in reality, he used this generosity to affirm the truth that my father had stolen. The warehouse exploded. The person died, with no concrete evidence, yet he was quick to conclude. But it was indeed the most logical reason if there was no other way to explain father's actions. Father went to work after hours due to his bad motives and his own negligence, resulting in his death. This was not considered a work-related accident, and he also destroyed the fireworks factory's warehouse. Yet Director Chen still offered a considerable sum of money. My mother clutched the heavy paper packet, her pale face gradually flushing. She bowed her head, trembling all over, her teeth chattering, then her whole body collapsed, letting out a faint, inaudible sigh as if utterly exhausted. She softly said, "Victor did what he shouldn't have done. Uncle Chen, you are a good man. My whole family is indebted to the factory." At that moment, an unspeakable sense of despair overwhelmed me. I heard the neighbor boy's voice in my ear. "I told you your dad was a thief, served him right." I saw Shawn, Director Chen's son, squatting in front of me, then remembered the scene of father being beaten by workers in the factory and then dragged up by Shawn. I saw Shawn pull several small fireworks from his chest and give them to me, gently saying, "If you want to play with fireworks in the future, just come find Uncle. My house has plenty." Then I again remembered the horrific image of father dying in the fireworks explosion. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore. In the middle of the funeral, I let out a shrill, piercing scream, like the sound of an explosive fire, startling everyone. "Is this child crazy? Poor child, she's too distraught." People whispered and murmured around me. Director Chen's face immediately darkened. My mother quickly composed herself, hugged me tightly, swallowing my scream within her embrace. Her hand squeezed the back of my neck, pressing my head down. She apologized to Director Chen. "Uncle Chen, you are our family's benefactor. I truly don't know how to repay you. I will no longer refuse this money. Victor is gone. I am not capable of much. Joanna is young and doesn't understand things. Please forgive her." Then she reached out and took the small fireworks from Shawn's hand, saying, "Mr. Shawn, on behalf of Joanna, thank you." Shawn frowned, looked at my mother, and gave a faint, indifferent smile. The father and son left first. Others, having watched the drama, also gradually dispersed. Only my mother, I, and father's coffin remained. White mourning banners fluttered in the wind, the air hung with ash from paper money, and the brazier's fire was slowly dying, utterly cold. I was still held tightly by mother. She stuffed the front of her shirt into my mouth, and I sobbed, struggling for breath. Father's funeral ended like that. Afterward, I no longer liked fireworks. Fireworks quickly cool and fade, leaving only murky smoke and dust, the most desolate remnants. Moreover, whenever I heard the sound of fireworks, I was transported back to that absurd and tragic night in 1996. Joanna's narration paused here, her eyes brimming with tears. I commented that the story was very moving and indeed strange. But from my recollection, my colleague had never mentioned this case being related to an explosion. Considering that Joanna's account dated back to 1996, several years before the case occurred, I didn't voice any objections. However, to be certain, I still needed to review the case file. I went to the door and called my intern to bring me the case file. Joanna's eyes followed me. "Attorney Luke, do you think I've done something bad?" I returned to my seat and said, "Your question about my thoughts is meaningless. I only hear the story from your perspective, so naturally, I would side with you and empathize with you, believing your father didn't do anything wrong. But if one thinks carefully, certain inconsistencies emerge." "What inconsistencies?" "The core issue here is, why did your father go to the warehouse at night? You clearly hope your father went to steal fireworks for you. Even if it causes you pain and guilt, at least it makes his actions more understandable. But it's highly illogical for a father to steal fireworks for his child. Was there any joyous occasion in your family at that time? No. There was no celebration then. The Lunar New Year was still 3 months away. So why would he steal on that particular day? You might think he wanted to prepare in advance, couldn't he? That's somewhat acceptable. Let's set that point aside for now. But if he stole fireworks for you, could your family even set them off? In such a small town, neighbors and factory workers all knew your family couldn't afford fireworks. Fireworks are also different from ordinary goods. They're not something you can close the doors and use discreetly. If your family set off fireworks, it would undoubtedly arouse suspicion, especially from those workers who already disliked your father. According to your description, your father had a calm temperament and was intelligent. He couldn't possibly be unaware of this logic. He wouldn't undertake such a risky endeavor. Therefore, if your father truly went to steal fireworks, it must not have been for you, but for another purpose. The motive the workers speculated about is quite plausible. Your father, as a quality inspector, could have classified standard products as defective, stashing them in the scrap warehouse, then finding an opportunity to sell them outside the district for profit. If that were the case, he would have done something wrong. However, if your father didn't go to steal fireworks, then perhaps there was no issue of classifying standard products as defective. But if he wasn't there to steal fireworks, what was he doing at the warehouse that night? If it was for a good reason, what good deed couldn't be done openly during the day? Joanna said, "Attorney Luke, my thoughts back then were just like yours, because we both find it hard to imagine such complex things happening in this world." All right, please continue. Joanna's story, Part 2. After father passed, mother and I relied on each other to live. Officer Lou, who was mother's middle school classmate, said she had changed a lot. I had also heard about mother's past. She dropped out of school early and married father at a very young age. Since they weren't old enough to legally marry, they didn't register their marriage, but back then, no one cared. A wedding banquet was enough to consider them husband and wife. After I was born, mother stayed home to care for her husband and child, not working, a perfect example of a traditional homemaker. Yet, mother's experiences were anything but ordinary. From childhood, her personality was unlike other girls her age. She was straightforward and restless, always wanting to leave our small district for the wider world, hoping to pass exams and travel far beyond the mountains. Her academic performance was indeed excellent, but my grandparents were uneducated and narrow-minded, insistent that mother marry into a respectable family. Mother's lofty ambitions caused them much distress. Mother was not only smart, but also very opinionated. Once during class, her literature teacher told a small story, saying that when in danger, an ostrich would bury its head in the sand, imagining others couldn't see it to avoid reality. But mother said she had read a description of ostriches in an extracurricular book. She argued that an ostrich's first reaction to danger was to run at 70 km/h. Furthermore, an ostrich's fighting ability was very strong. Even if it couldn't escape, it wouldn't hide but would face the danger head-on. The teacher dismissed mother's opinion, telling her not to read miscellaneous books and that she shouldn't speak carelessly without having seen an ostrich with her own eyes. But there were no wild ostriches in the country. No one had ever seen one. The teacher's assertion was merely hearsay. Mother felt the teacher shouldn't arbitrarily dismiss her. Since no one had concrete evidence, different viewpoints should be allowed to exist. The teacher, challenged by mother, immediately became angry. Teachers in those days held great authority, but mother refused to back down. When he was wrong, she pointed it out. When he refused to admit it, she wouldn't let it go, arguing back. This was extremely aggressive behavior. The teacher, considering mother's good grades, offered her an easy way out, saying an apology would suffice, but mother refused. Feeling humiliated, the teacher deemed her morally deficient and resolved to recommend her expulsion. My grandfather, who had never wanted mother to attend school, took this opportunity to agree. Mother, furious, ran away from home in the middle of the night. As a result, the roads were dark and treacherous. She unfortunately fell down a hillside and broke her leg. Mother lay under the hillside for an entire day before my grandfather found her. The feeling of waiting for death then was utterly despairing. From then on, mother retreated into herself, no longer daring to stand out. Later, her leg was reset, but it left a lasting impairment. To this day, that leg still limps, just as mother remains timid and fearful. Back then, my grandfather, worried mother would dwell on things, found potential suitors for her, urging her to marry early. Many families had initially shown interest in mother, but after her incident at school, running away and breaking her leg, their doors suddenly became deserted. Everyone thought mother's personality was too strong, disagreeable, and disobedient, not to mention her lame leg affecting her prospects. Finally, after many searches, they found my father. Father was 11 years older than mother. His family circumstances were not well off, but he was mature, stable, and had also received an education. Father was a man of few words, not good at communicating, and originally had no intention of going on a blind date, but he was pressured by acquaintances. When he met Mother, Father couldn't take his eyes off her. After they married, Father treated Mother very well. After I was born, stimulated by maternal hormones, Mother also became more settled. There was no intense, passionate love between them, simply a relationship of companionship. Many years at home made Mother utterly dependent on Father. Compared to the free-spirited, rebellious girl of the past, they were truly two completely different people. The day Father was beaten by the workers, Mother was brave for once, but that courage had a reliance, like a fox borrowing a tiger's prestige. Father was not a tiger, nor did he have prestige, but as long as Father was present, Mother felt safe. Even though Father was beaten so humiliatingly that outsiders found him a laughingstock. I once thought that no matter how difficult life became, there was no need to fear because I had Father and Mother. Having our whole family together was enough. But that fateful explosion destroyed my small wish. After Father left for a time, I didn't know how life could continue, but in her bones, Mother was still unyielding. She forced herself to cheer up, gathering all her courage to step out of the house. I cried and sat on the ground, clinging to her hand, refusing to let her go. Father's death made me fear loss. I was afraid of losing Mother again. Mother said, "Joanna, life must go on, my child." Mother successively found 2 jobs, one at a breakfast shop, another at a tailor's shop. The breakfast shop hours were demanding, making it inconvenient to care for me. The tailor's shop strained her eyes and body, and Mother's own health wasn't good. Moreover, these jobs paid very little. Ultimately, the fireworks industry was still the most lucrative, with half the town working at the fireworks factory. So Mother eventually joined the fireworks factory, working as an assembly line worker, while I could go to the factory's daycare. Mother knew I lacked a sense of security, so she always kept me by her side, sleeping with me at night and telling me stories. I often woke up suddenly in the middle of the night, jumping up to look out the window. The sky was clearly empty, yet I would see those shooting stars and then burst into uncontrollable sobs, like a prolonged visual hallucination. Mother couldn't console me, so she had no choice but to take me to the district to consult a doctor. But doctors in small places didn't treat psychological ailments, advising Mother to take me to a large city hospital for examination and prescribing medication. Mother shook her head, saying, "It's not good for a child so young to take medicine, and leaving such a medical record isn't good either." So Mother decided to solve it herself. She studied psychology through books, and through conversations with me, she gradually found a method. Day after day, she helped me process my feelings. No one understood a child better than their mother. No one trusted their mother more than a child. Mother's self-administered psychological intervention had certain advantages. With her help, I gradually overcame it. Time passed like this for a year. My grandfather feared that Mother, raising a child alone, would be bullied, so he arranged several more blind dates for her. Mother also went to meet them one by one, but even as a young girl, she had been scorned. Now, carrying me, an illegitimate child, and having experienced a tragedy like Father's, no decent family would value her. Only a few lecherous men showed eagerness. Mother also wanted to find support, so she went to every blind date. Outsiders had many rumors, claiming Mother looked weak but had a tough heart. I understood Mother's lack of security, but I didn't approve of her methods. Fortunately, nothing came of it in the end because most of the blind date prospects were not sincere. Only one was quite genuine, whom I called Uncle Zhang. He was gentle and friendly, with a demeanor similar to Father's. His circumstances were also good. He was a grain merchant in town. My impression of Uncle Zhang was quite positive, but ultimately, Mother and he didn't go anywhere. All the blind dates failed, but Mother had no shortage of harassers. One afternoon, Mother finished work and was taking me home. On the way, she was surrounded by 2 idle, lazy men from the village. They blocked Mother, preventing her from leaving. Mother, already limping, found it difficult to escape. I tried my best to pull them away but was pushed to the ground. I got up and cried for help on the road, but passers-by were either in a hurry or stood by, laughing. I was furious. I intended to go find Officer Liu but didn't have time. So I cried and ran straight home, grabbed a knife and quickly rushed back, determined to kill those 2 men. But by the time I arrived, Mother had already been rescued by someone else. It was Shawn again. He happened to be passing by and kicked the 2 lazy men, sending them tumbling into a ditch. Shawn had once helped Father out of trouble, and now he had saved Mother. He seemed wicked, but in reality, he wasn't a bad person. I thought Mother would be like at the funeral, affectionately calling him Brother Shawn, her eyes welling up with gratitude, but Mother didn't even look at him. She bowed her head, adjusted her clothes, and immediately led me away. Thinking about it, Shawn's aggressive way of kicking people was indeed frightening to behold. Perhaps Mother had long seen through the true nature of the Chen father and son and didn't want to get further entangled with them. If it hadn't been for desperation, Mother wouldn't have gone to work at the fireworks factory. The fireworks factory seemed glamorous but was not simple in reality. Before, there had been an incident in the town where a fireworks factory worker mysteriously disappeared, with no body found alive or dead. It was said to be related to the factory management. Director Chen and Shawn, the father and son, held immense power locally. Shawn was not only good at fighting, but also had a gang of subordinates, and no one dared to provoke them. Shawn's help seemed benevolent on the surface, but in reality, he just enjoyed seeing others afraid of him. Fortunately, no one dared to bully Mother anymore after that. Life continued like that. In those years, the country's development changed daily. The fireworks factory also quickly expanded, riding the east wind. Orders from all over the country doubled every year. The workshops couldn't expand fast enough. Mother and the other workers toiled all day on the assembly line, endlessly busy. Director Chen had great ambitions, fearing that a single step backward would mean falling behind the times. So he used the time to adjust his strategy. And Shawn also frequently went out to survey the market, traveling all over the country. Our district's main industry was fireworks. Initially, only the fireworks factory dominated the market, the rest were small workshops. To meet the greater market demand, in those 2 years, many small workshops sprang up like mushrooms after rain, working day and night without rest, unwilling to fall behind even for a moment. What seemed bustling on the outside was actually supported and set up by the fireworks factory, all working for the factory. This was the result of a policy where directives came from above and countermeasures were sought below. Hot summers made fireworks production unsafe. According to supervision regulations, operations had to cease in the summer. The fireworks factory, being a large enterprise, certainly complied. But small workshops didn't necessarily. Many didn't even have production licenses and paid no attention to cumbersome rules. They hid in the mountains, producing clandestinely. Oversight agencies couldn't find them and naturally couldn't manage them. That summer alone, I heard 3 explosions echo from the mountains. Each time, they startled me and made me tremble all over. Fireworks production increased, requiring more storage, but warehouses couldn't be built fast enough. So, the factory rented many villagers' self-built houses and converted them into warehouses. Fireworks, after all, are dangerous and highly flammable materials. Storing them in houses posed significant safety risks, and no one wanted them in their home. But the factory, with its cronies, came to negotiate, and no one dared to say no. In the end, not only were the houses rented, but the rent was also forced very low. The house of the neighbor boy, who was so arrogant towards my mother and me, became as docile as a quail when people from the factory came. Eventually, more than half of his house was forced into being rented as a warehouse. Our house was small, with only living space and a cellar, nowhere else. The damp cellar certainly couldn't store fireworks, so we were fortunate to escape this fate. But looking at the entire town, doing this would inevitably lead to trouble sooner or later. In early 1998, during the Lunar New Year, an explosion echoed from the neighbor's house, followed by the boy's mournful, agonizing cries. He had wanted to go into the warehouse to find a small firework to play with, resulting in an accident. He had once bluntly called my father a thief and ridiculed my mother for being lame. As a result, he ended up losing his left leg in a fireworks explosion, also becoming lame. Several other houses in the neighboring village also experienced problems, not accidents but damp fireworks. When the factory came to collect goods and found them damaged, they beat people without giving any reason. After the beating, they would compensate for medical expenses, but the villagers also had to pay for the fireworks at full price. The compensation for fireworks was more than the medical expenses received. In the end, people were injured, and money was lost. That year, the sky was always gray. Exhaust from fireworks production polluted the air, and smoke and dust from fireworks testing obscured the blue sky. When I stepped outside, I always smelled gunpowder, both literally and figuratively. Everyone was anxious and uneasy amidst the sounds of fireworks. I once asked Officer Lou, "Why has the world become so scary? Fireworks killed my father, and it seems they're about to blow up this whole town." Officer Lou's face was sorrowful. He said he was just a small police officer, and many things were beyond his control. He advised me to study hard, pass my exams to leave the mountains, and take Mother away from this place forever. We could leave, but Father could only stay here forever. In 1998, I was 7 years old, just entering first grade. It was still a long time until I could pass exams to leave the mountains. Because so much had happened in our family, my personality changed greatly. I didn't like to talk, yet craved for others to talk to me, a very conflicted psychological state. But my classmates didn't want to befriend me. The town was so small. The parents of my classmates all knew about my family's situation. They felt my family was too complicated, so they told their children to have little contact with me. No one ever invited me to participate in any activities, and if there was food to share, they never gave me a portion. I was isolated by my classmates. My presence in class was very faint. Only because I was good at studying did teachers occasionally mention me. In the evening at dinner, Mother made my favorite scrambled eggs with onions, but I was sad and had no appetite. Mother asked what was wrong. Too many things had happened, but they were all small things. I didn't know where to start, so I just said they all disliked me. Mother sat down beside me, placing both hands on my shoulders. She said, "Does whether they like you or not matter that much, my child? No matter how loved you are, there will always be people who don't like you. What's the difference between one person not liking you and a whole group not liking you? In any case, they are all people we don't pay attention to. These people will change after you graduate primary school, and again after you graduate junior high. Life requires several changes. Only those who are truly important will remain. Don't worry too much about it. Right now, it's enough that Mother likes you." Mother's eyes were very firm, and the warmth radiating from her was reassuring. Mother had a point, but I still couldn't follow it. It was truly difficult not to care in that environment. I wasn't an easygoing person. One semester passed. I, who initially only disliked talking, eventually became utterly isolated. Extroverted attempts received no response, so I began to turn inward. In class, I often lost focus, frequently thinking how wonderful it would be if Father were still here. Then, I unconsciously recalled the winter 2 years prior, the explosion at the fireworks warehouse. Perhaps because I experienced such extreme stimulation that year, my body activated a self-protection mechanism. I had forgotten the feeling of that year, no longer feeling such intense pain. But a growing sensation emerged. I felt I had overlooked some important detail that happened just before and after the 1996 explosion. I constantly replayed it in my mind, but couldn't remember it. The more I couldn't remember, the more I worried, the more I had to think about it, eventually becoming an obsession. For a period while doing homework, I always heard rustling sounds in the house, as if someone was hiding somewhere. The sound both frightened me and sparked my curiosity. I searched everywhere for the source of the noise, finally stopping at the entrance of our cellar. Our cellar was a very secluded place. I suspected the sound came from there, but I didn't dare open that door. I had been afraid of cellars since childhood. It was very dark inside, a small, cramped, suffocating space. Just thinking about it made it hard to breathe. Such a place was only used for food storage. How could anyone hide there? I listened to that sound, unclear whether it was real or illusory, feeling anxious and uneasy all day. Mother once again noticed I wasn't well and asked what was wrong. I honestly recounted it. Mother also realized the seriousness of the problem. She said I was isolating myself too much, that I shouldn't think about it anymore, and should go out for walks and admire the scenery more to relax my mind. Mother wasn't very mobile due to her leg, so she couldn't take me out to play. Just then, Officer Lou was on leave for a few days, so she asked him to take me out for a day. A single day wasn't enough to go far, so Officer Lou could only take me to the neighboring district to climb mountains. The neighboring district, like ours, was also in a mountainous region. The scenery wasn't much different, but going out for a walk truly was much more relaxing. Returning home, my condition was much better. I knew this was very strange, but I really didn't want to admit it was a hallucination. In one moment, a bold thought suddenly struck me. Could those sounds be Father? Was it Father's ghost, or was Father actually not dead? The charred body that year was burned beyond recognition. On what basis could they claim it was Father? I told Mother my suspicion, but Mother told me not to think nonsense. Your father is dead, killed in a fireworks explosion. Mother said coldly, people must look forward, not always be trapped in the past. You've been so restless lately. Is it because you're always thinking about this? I bowed my head and said nothing. If Mother were like you, constantly thinking about father, unable to focus on work, deceiving herself, what would we two live on? Joanna, don't think about the past anymore. You must focus on yourself, study hard to become strong. I was also stubborn, I couldn't accept it. Why? Why did that incident just pass like that? Mother, have you truly let go? That night in 1996 was too long. I once thought the sun would never rise again. Father was dead. That day must have been the end of the world. But the sun still rose. Time did not stop because father left. It continued to flow leisurely. 2 years had passed in a blink. In these 2 years, Mother worked many jobs, eventually staying at the fireworks factory. Every day was hard. I started primary school, my grades were good, but I wasn't happy at all. Now my academic performance began to decline. After father's death, life, despite its continuation, remained as gloomy as the sky outside. So how could that incident simply pass easily? Mother looked at me deeply, as if wanting to say something but held back, finally sighing. Joanna, life must go on. This world doesn't revolve around our family. Mother's voice was low. You must look forward, study hard, live earnestly. Then father will rest easy watching from heaven. When you get into university and leave this place, you will see a wider world. Go see the Tibetan snow mountains, go to Argentina to see the great waterfalls or the northern lights. When you see those majestic sights, you will understand how small humans are. This world has its own operating rules, and the dead cannot come back to life. That is also its rule. Compared to the vast world, your naive thoughts are so trivial, just deceiving yourself. I retorted, the places Mother talks about are just what she read in books. Mother hasn't seen them with her own eyes, so how can you be sure they're grand while my concerns are trivial? I don't want to care about the world, I only care about my own family. After saying this, without waiting for Mother's reply, I dashed out, only to turn back at the door and see Mother immersed in the twilight shadows, her shoulders slumped, an air of loneliness. A pang of regret suddenly rose within me. I knew Mother bore the family burden alone, even limping onto the production line, so busy she couldn't even eat on time. It was very hard. I also empathized with Mother. Her lessons were always logical, but I didn't want to bid farewell to the past like that. These past 2 years, I had seen Mother change a lot. She was no longer the mother at the funeral who softly refuted others, no longer the mother who hesitantly accepted the compensation money, and certainly not the timid, weak mother who always relied on father. Instead, she resembled the person I had heard stories about. Perhaps having lost her support, she reverted to her older self. She wanted to leave this place, craving the outside world. She always made time to read books and listen to the radio after work, learning about the outside world through limited channels. But how far could a limping person like her go? Escaping the past, escaping reality, her eyes only on the future. Wasn't that also deceiving herself? I didn't object to Mother returning to her true self, but she couldn't stop me from being myself. I remained immersed in the past, becoming increasingly withdrawn, unable to escape my inner world. But I was still young after all. Just one unexpected external event could change everything. That was a small memory from late 1998. One day in December 1998, during recess, I was daydreaming when I suddenly heard a voice call my name, Joanna, at the classroom door. I startled, quickly looked up, and saw the most energetic boy in class holding up a pretty box and running to my desk. The red box, tied with a green ribbon, was like a fairy tale gift, standing out amidst the gloomy winter, immediately attracting the attention of the whole class. Everyone simultaneously exclaimed, "Ooh," and crowded around. The boy excitedly handed me the box, saying, "The security guard asked me to give this to you. He said someone sent you a gift. Open it, open it, open it quickly." The whole group urged loudly, drawn by curiosity. They spoke as if they were very close to me, but I didn't care about any of that. Who would send me a gift? Under everyone's eager gaze, my heart thumped. I solemnly untied the green ribbon and opened the red box. Inside was an exquisite crystal globe. In the center of the globe was a small mouse wearing a red scarf, clutching a large piece of cheese, looking up at the sky with a tranquil expression. With a gentle shake, the snow inside the globe would flutter down like in a dream. It was the first time I had seen something so beautiful. I dared not believe it was for me. Why me? My classmates passed it around, each careful not to damage the delicate gift, then carefully returned it to me after one round. There was also a letter inside the box, addressed, "Dear young Joanna." Only then was I certain it was meant for me. The letter read, "Dear young Joanna, this is a Christmas gift for you. May you grow up healthy and happy. Santa Claus." It turned out to be a gift from Santa Claus. Before that, I had only heard about this holiday. My small hometown wasn't that modern. No one had ever celebrated Christmas. Yet I received a gift from Santa Claus, and I was the only one in class who did. Everyone was incredibly envious. I carefully rewrapped the gift box, hid it in my satchel, and brought it home that evening to show Mother. Mother was also surprised. She held the crystal globe, examining it meticulously, praising it endlessly, saying she had never seen anything so beautiful, surely only found in big cities. Mother said the only time in her life she had left the district was when my grandfather took her to a city hospital to reset her broken leg. Therefore, her impression of the city consisted only of cold hospitals, unpleasant disinfectant smells, and painful memories. The outside world she had dreamed of since childhood was nothing more than that. I felt Mother's vision was still limited. Whether it was a small town, a district capital, or a big city, they were all mundane matters. But this was not mundane, this was a gift from Santa Claus. Mother pondered silently, then told me to keep it carefully. I happily placed it by my bedside, admiring it many times each day. Just seeing it, I felt filled with strength. I gradually became more active in class. My classmates also started talking to me. After all, I was the child chosen by Santa Claus, and all children believe in Santa Claus, right? This was another strange thing that happened to me. It helped me escape isolation. Once a person learns to live fully in the present, they are no longer imprisoned by the past. 1999 was the year preparing for the new millennium. Especially in the latter half of the year, the whole country was filled with a joyful atmosphere. The demand for fireworks in major cities and across all industries surged. By the Millennium Transition Day, the sheer volume of fireworks set off nationwide was incalculable. Yet, in such an enthusiastic year, our small town became even gloomier. The fireworks factory was almost fully booked with orders for the entire year. Director Chen eagerly proclaimed the slogan, "Operate at full capacity, enter the 21st century." And so, the main factory in town and the small workshops in the forest all exerted their full efforts, producing day and night without rest. Production scale expanded, and more fireworks were made. Every day, barrel after barrel of fireworks filled the warehouses. Then, convoys of trucks repeatedly entered the mountains and emptied each warehouse. This cycle repeated, suffocating the entire town, all to keep the fireworks factory earning insane profits. With more money, more things could be done. The Chen family's influence grew stronger and stronger, clearly becoming the local overlords. Although many were dissatisfied with their conduct, countless supporters continued to flock to them. The strong rule, that is the law of nature. When things reach an extreme, they reverse. Prosperity leads to decline. At that time, no one expected their good days were about to end. By September, the weather was still sweltering. As the small workshops in the mountains were bustling with production, the town suddenly welcomed many leaders from other areas, accompanied by local district leaders. News quickly spread. It was a provincial inspection team conducting a surprise safety audit of fireworks production. But things were not that simple, because immediately after, provincial police also arrived. Our district was nestled deep in the mountains, a remote and secluded area, and the town itself was hidden in a valley, extremely isolated. This father and son duo had run rampant in our small town for many years, attracting little outside attention, but ultimately, evil cannot triumph over good. Good deeds don't leave the house, but bad deeds travel 1,000 miles. The more bad things they did, the greater the risk of exposure, eventually alarming the provincial inspection team. Their visit targeted the fireworks factory, not just to inspect fireworks production, but also to settle all the actions of Director Chen and Shawn. When the province came to inspect, paper could not conceal fire. Director Chen of the fireworks factory had secretly supported and colluded with unlicensed small fireworks workshops, leading to numerous production accidents. This constituted crimes of illegal business operations, manufacturing and selling products that did not meet safety standards, and causing serious consequences through negligence. Furthermore, over the years, director Chen and Shawn had continuously expanded their influence, bullied local residents, and committed crimes such as organizing, leading, and participating in criminal organizations, premeditated murder, intentional injury, and disturbing public order. Director Chen was caught by surprise and forced to surrender to the law. However, his son, Shawn, disappeared without a trace. In the past 2 years, Shawn had frequently traveled outside to survey the market. His last return to the district was half a year ago, and he hadn't come back since. Perhaps he heard rumors outside and dared not return. In those days, police officers from the province busily traversed the streets and mountains, collecting evidence. Villagers hid behind their doors, secretly watching, not daring to speak, but the sky above the town had not been blue for a very long time. When Director Chen was handcuffed and put into the police car, the suppressed joy in everyone's hearts finally showed on their faces. The era of the fireworks factory ended on a day as ordinary as could be. The fireworks factory had existed in the town for 15 years. In those 15 years, from its construction to its collapse, from a legitimate enterprise to a criminal organization, the sprawling main factory and the scattered workshops across the mountains had witnessed the entire process of Director Chen's ambition swelling, his conscience darkening, and at the same time, the joys and sorrows of countless town residents. At the moment the New Year fireworks shot into the sky, people couldn't help but look towards the once prosperous, now desolate factory. While holding their heads high with pride, they also couldn't help but sigh with emotion. But decaying things had to be left in the past. The new century brought a new atmosphere. Director Chen's fireworks factory, having run at full capacity, ultimately could not enter the 21st century. So where did Shawn go? Even before the surprise inspection campaign, town residents had heard that Director Chen was looking for Shawn. This was because in the past, each time Shawn went out for market surveys, he would return within 2 months. But this time he had been gone for a very long time, with no news. At that time, information was blocked, transportation was undeveloped, and buying bus tickets didn't require real name identification. Finding someone nationwide was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Director Chen desperately searched for several months, still with no news. Then the inspection team arrived, and he was too busy worrying about himself to care where Shawn had gone. Everyone thought Shawn had heard rumors early, feared arrest, and so this filial son had fled beforehand, leaving his father to confusedly face the inspection team. The police also struggled to find his whereabouts, so Shawn was listed as a fugitive on the run. It wasn't until a year later that everyone discovered Shawn hadn't gone far at all. In fact, he hadn't even left the town. In the summer of 2000, heavy rains poured down from above, washing down fragments of a body onto the main road day after day, terrifying passers-by. It was a cruel dismemberment murder. Due to the low degree of dismemberment, the body parts were large, and their burial locations were close to each other. Police followed the rainwater flow up the mountain, quickly finding several more pieces, which could basically be assembled into a complete human form. Mother came to pick me up from school. We passed that road. Just then, we saw police carrying a stretcher down the mountain. The body parts had been reassembled on the stretcher, covered with a white sheet, but a small portion was still exposed at the edge, looking truly horrific. Mother quickly covered my eyes, just like when the charred body was carried out years ago. But in reality, after experiencing the explosion, my ability to accept such sights was higher. Seeing this body didn't frighten me too much. It was just that a second before Mother covered my eyes, I accidentally noticed the victim's right hand exposed at the edge of the white cloth, missing half of its little finger. At that time, I didn't pay it much mind, only remembering the scene. Police quickly identified the body. The victim, murdered and dismembered, was none other than Shawn. On the body, there was only one fatal wound on the neck, caused by a common household sharp knife. The weapon used for dismemberment was an axe used for chopping firewood, also a common household item, but no murder weapon was found at the scene. Based on the body's state of decomposition, he had died 2 years prior. In 1999, before Director Chen was arrested, his son had already died. After 2 years, Shawn's body was finally found. In these 2 years, how many winds had blown and how many rains had fallen on the mountain? This particular rain had also fallen for many days, washing away the scene, leaving no useful evidence. The area was mountainous, densely forested, and sparsely populated. There were many suitable places to commit violence, and the primary crime scene couldn't be found. In those days, technical capabilities were not advanced enough. Police investigating cases mainly relied on the victim's social relationships, interviewing the public, and filtering key individuals. This investigative method was very effective in rural areas back then because neighborly ties were close. Family matters, old grudges, and new disputes were easily known by asking. But if they encountered a random killer, this method would fail because the culprit would not be within the victim's social circle at all. A city in a neighboring province in those years experienced a series of serious crimes. Several victims had no interaction, and their social circles were very simple. The perpetrator acted randomly, a typical case of motiveless killing. Even though fingerprints and DNA of the culprit were found at the scene, and even DNA of over 100,000 people in the area were screened, the case remained unsolved. If even with evidence it was like that, this case, with no evidence found, was even more difficult. The focus could only remain on social relationships, but another problem with this case was that Shawn's social relationships were too numerous and too complicated. After several rounds of interviews and screening, many people disliked Shawn. Many had motives, but none had concrete evidence. Last year, the province just came to rectify issues related to wanted criminals from old cases. The police took it very seriously, investigating cautiously, questioning many people, but ultimately came up with nothing. No one knew how Shawn suddenly disappeared that year, or whom he last met. So this case was shelved until now. Attorney Luke, the murder case from 2000 that you are holding in your hand is the very case I just spoke about. Joanna had been telling her story for a long time, much of it tangential. I didn't interrupt her, maintaining a cautious listening attitude. I wanted to hear when she would get to the main point, the 2000 case I was currently handling. It wasn't until she mentioned this case that I finally confirmed Joanna was indeed an insider. She knew many unreleased details of the case, especially that the body was not highly dismembered, only divided into several large pieces, but not entirely so. There were still some small fragments, the most important of which was half of the little finger on the victim's right hand. I remained calm. Please continue. Joanna's story, Part 3. In 2000, Shawn's body was discovered in the forest of the small town. Police opened an investigation but could not identify a suspect for years. Time passed. In 2004, I passed the entrance exam for middle school in the district. It wasn't a great school, but at least it was an escape from the small town. I always remembered what Officer Lou told me. He said I had to study hard to leave and escape this place forever. The district wasn't far from the small town, but it was the beginning of my departure. After Director Chen was arrested, the fireworks factory significantly downsized. My mother quit her job and moved with me to the district, renting a house near my school. Mother quickly found new work in the district, as an assembly line worker at an electronics factory, which allowed us to scrape by. For a long time, I couldn't adapt to middle school life. It wasn't a good school, the academic atmosphere was poor, and the district was more open-minded than the small town. My classmates were interested in a wide variety of things. They skipped class to play games at the arcade, gathered in the bathrooms to sing pop songs, and smoked. Some boys wore earrings, some dyed their hair red. They found all sorts of ways to kill their youthful time. I couldn't keep up with the trends, couldn't talk to them, and was only good at studying, so I quickly became isolated. Isolation soon turned into bullying. I offended a small group by refusing to copy homework for one of them. After school, 3 or 4 boys and girls cornered me, slapped my face, tore up my homework, told me I was old-fashioned, and wanted to design a new hairstyle for me, then cut my hair unevenly. After they left, I wandered outside for a long time, wondering how I would explain it to Mother when I got home. I could talk about other things, but not my hair. In the end, I couldn't hide it. Mother was furious when she found out. The next day, she took leave from work to come to my school, wanting to meet the parents of those students. Mother stood at the teacher's office door, her voice calm, her eyes sharp, only her hands, hanging loosely, trembled slightly. She looked much stronger than when she confronted the fireworks factory in the old days. The teachers didn't dare to be negligent and immediately called all the parents. Those classmates of mine looked down on me, and their parents' attitudes were even more dismissive and arrogant. Mother reasoned with the parents, hoping they would discipline their children, but they claimed they couldn't. They thought Mother was overreacting, saying children were just being playful, nothing serious, even their apologies were grudging. No one paid attention to Mother's complaints, they only knew how to lie shamelessly. One person even said my new hairstyle was beautiful. Eventually, after a long standoff, the homeroom teacher stepped in to mediate, making them compensate for the haircut and the notebooks. I was to get my hair tidied up and buy new notebooks. That was the end of it. I was bullied by my classmates. Mother was oppressed by their parents, but we were both helpless. Mother was so resentful that she refused their money, and they parted ways in discord. Those classmates were very displeased that I called their parents. Seeing that my disabled mother couldn't do anything, they escalated their bullying, provoking and teasing me in every petty way that couldn't be directly challenged. Someone must have heard our family's old story, adding salt and spice, making my life even more miserable. I resisted, I argued, but no one listened. I had to endure baseless attacks. I felt both wronged and sad. Even if I tried to force myself to divert my attention, I couldn't focus on my studies as before. Consequently, my grades declined, and my spirits worsened day by day. Mother watched, heartbroken. I knew Mother had also tried her best. Perhaps life was like this. Many things were beyond our control. I thought I might as well drop out of school and work with Mother at the electronics factory. I could at least help her share some of life's burdens. But just as this thought began to sprout, one day the world suddenly became peaceful. Those classmates no longer targeted me, they avoided me on the streets, seemingly very afraid of me. Their parents also came to school one by one to apologize to me, speaking very politely. For a time, no one in class dared to talk to me, which was an even more extreme form of isolation. Another strange thing, I wasn't sure what had happened, but generally, I returned to my normal routine. Luckily, I hadn't yet told Mother about my intention to drop out and work at the electronics factory, or I would have been lectured fiercely. Mother always taught me to study hard, to learn with an unburdened mind. Mother had very high expectations for me, wanting me to get into a key high school and a good university, ideally even study abroad to broaden my horizons, so that this life wouldn't be wasted. Mother not only had high expectations for me, but was also very strict with herself. She was not satisfied with the assembly line work at the factory. She disliked doing repetitive tasks like a machine. Mother loved to learn, loved to think. In her free time, Mother would go to the district library to borrow books, self-studying accounting and legal knowledge. Even when doing housework, she wasn't idle. She'd turn on the radio, listening to news or travel channels. She also looked through my textbooks and even learned a few English phrases. Mother said if I ever studied abroad, she would come visit and wouldn't bother me. By the time I was about to finish 9th grade, Mother was transferred to the accounting department of the electronics factory to work as an accountant. My high school entrance exam results were also very good. I got into a key high school in the city. In 2007, I was in 10th grade, boarding in the city. Mother still lived in the district. High school, after all, was a good school. The academic atmosphere was vibrant, which was the environment I desired. My classmates were kind-natured, well-educated. No one knew what had happened to my family, and they were all very friendly towards me. Of course, it was just polite but distant friendliness. My high school classmates' interests were not only broad but also refined. I was just a provincial student, still unable to truly integrate into the group. My classmates would naturally talk about their parents, while I no longer had a father and my mother was disabled. Being in adolescence, my inferiority complex grew heavier. Because my home was far, I could only return once every 2 weeks. Each lonely day, I missed Mother terribly. Mother seemed to understand my situation. In the second semester of 10th grade, our rental contract in the district expired. Mother moved out, quit her job, and moved to the city. She rented a house next to People's Park, not too far from my school. Then she found an accounting job nearby. I switched to coming home daily after school, having dinner every night, and after dinner, we would walk together in People's Park. Mother never missed an opportunity to teach me. She pointed to the empty cicada shell on a tree and said, "From small to large, caterpillars stay on the tree until they become butterflies, while cicadas must climb step by step from the dark ground onto the tree to shed their skin and mature." But in the end, both can meet high up. Joanna, everyone's life rhythm is different. You must maintain your own pace, don't mind others. There it was again. I understood the logic, but it was easier said than done. I am human, not an animal. Animals rely entirely on instinct, while I have thoughts, I have feelings. I often didn't listen to Mother's words, always wanting to retort a few lines in my heart. Anyway, with Mother by my side, the dark clouds in my heart gradually dissipated, but a sense of unease always lingered. These years felt like a fast-forward button, first moving to the district, then to the city, going farther and farther. But the farther I got from the small town, the stronger that sense of unease became. I looked back at the past and felt too many strange things had happened, all with no clear beginning or end. Many secrets seemed hidden around me, hazy and veiled. Every time I asked Mother about old events, she always dodged the topic, making me increasingly feel she was hiding something from me. The turning point occurred during the summer vacation of 11th grade. That summer, Mother had to return to the small town to clean out our old house. Before, Mother always went alone because I was busy with school. This time, I said I wanted to go with her, and Mother agreed. Returning to the house we once lived in, the familiar furnishings and arrangements moved me. I began to miss Father again. I walked back and forth in the house, from front to back. Every place was familiar to me. There was only one place I had entered once as a child, and never again afterward, our cellar. I was afraid of the dark. I hadn't dared to go into the cellar since I was little. But this time, passing the cellar door, I suddenly remembered hearing sounds in the house years ago, as if someone was hiding somewhere. Mother told me it was stress causing hallucinations, but I didn't think so. Those sounds came from the cellar. That year, I didn't dare open the door to check. Now I was older. I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. Mother was busy upstairs, not paying attention to me. I resolutely took a flashlight, opened the cellar door, took a deep breath, and stepped into the darkness. Inside, the cellar was gloomy, damp, and pitch black. Only the cold circle of light from my flashlight illuminated a small area. A cold, damp smell of earth assaulted my face. Only a few short steps, and the lower I went, the colder it got, but it was still summer, so not bone-chillingly cold. I stepped onto the muddy ground at the bottom. There was no firm feeling, and I couldn't hear my own footsteps at all. A sudden panic welled up in my heart. I couldn't help but shiver. The cellar was very small, about 4 to 5 square meters, empty except for a small stool placed in the middle. In the winter, Mother used to bring sweet potatoes and radishes into the cellar to prolong their preservation. Later, we moved, and this place was abandoned for many years. I walked around the walls once. There was nothing special, really, just an ordinary cellar. After so many years, returning here couldn't resolve my old doubts. I walked one more round and was about to go up, but just then my foot suddenly made a clunk sound. I had stepped on something hard. On the numb, muddy ground, it was so abrupt. I picked it up, illuminating it carefully with the flashlight. The very next second, my mind buzzed with a shocking realization. I threw it away forcefully. In a flash, my heart hammered like a drum. I nearly fainted from fright. It was a human finger bone a little finger. The scene I had accidentally witnessed years ago immediately reappeared before my eyes. 8 years prior, on my way home from school, I saw police carrying a body down the mountain. From the edge of the white cloth, I saw that the corpse was missing half of its right little finger. And now, in our cellar, there was half a little finger. I couldn't deceive myself that this was a coincidence. That summer's heavy rain had washed away all traces. Investigations into social connections yielded no clues. Police had questioned many people, interrogated many, searched many houses, but ultimately found no results. Shawn's case remained unsolved, but who would have thought his death was related to my home? I don't know how I picked it up again, nor how I climbed out. I stumbled out of the cellar entrance, the sunlight hitting my face, making me dizzy. When I came to my senses, I saw Mother standing not far away, quietly watching me. Unconsciously, I hid my hand behind my back, tightly clenching the finger bone in my palm, embarrassed and not daring to look. And what had happened in the cellar, Mother couldn't possibly not know. All these years, how many secrets had she kept? For a moment, I didn't dare to seek the answer. I saw Mother's expression was so unfamiliar. The corners of her mouth were coldly downturned, very solemn, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. I had seen Mother like this before. It was a distant yet familiar feeling. In that moment, a dormant memory returned. I suddenly remembered the night the fireworks warehouse exploded in 1996, a detail I had forgotten. Back then, I woke up and stood by the window, watching the fireworks for a while, unable to hold back my tears. Mother led me with the crowd to the overflow warehouse, but I suddenly remembered Mother hadn't been home all along. That night, when I stepped out of my room, I saw Mother had just opened the door and walked in from outside. At that moment, Mother stood by the door, looking at me with that same solemn yet sorrowful expression. Mother said nothing more, walked over to help me put on my coat, and then led me outside. Originally, Mother was very calm and composed, but on the way, she gradually became hurried and choked up. Neighbors all consoled Mother, but in reality, Mother was just pretending. The accident scene was filled with the smell of gunpowder, but even before arriving, I had smelled it faintly, lingering on Mother. Because when the explosion occurred, Mother was at the warehouse. This knowledge originally existed within me, but after seeing Father's body, I was so shocked that I didn't pay attention to it then. Afterward, I never suspected anything, yet Mother had intervened in the mind of a 5-year-old child, making me forget about it. Now Mother walked towards me, looking at me with complex eyes, saying nothing. Every heartbeat carried an unspeakable pain. I wanted to retreat but forced myself to hold back. Holding my breath, I finally asked in a hoarse voice, "Mother, did you do it? Did you do it?" The warehouse explosion felt like it was leaping into my throat. I stared at Mother, watching her every slightest movement. To my relief, Mother finally shook her head. I breathed a sigh of relief, opening my palm to show Mother the finger bone. "Mother, tell me what happened." Mother sighed softly, placed her hand over my fingers, and closed my hand tightly. Mother said, "We'll talk when we get home." We didn't have time to clean out the old house. Mother closed the cellar hatch, locked the door, and took me back to our home in the city. That night, after many persistent questions from me, Mother finally spoke. Mother said, "Joanna, each generation has its own burden to bear. Your father originally told me not to tell you, fearing you wouldn't be able to accept the truth. Now you've grown up and discovered this, Mother truly can't hide it anymore." I suddenly had a premonition, suppressing my emotions. I asked, "Is Father still alive?" Mother nodded. "Father indeed is not dead." In that moment, years of my suffering suddenly found an outlet. I was temporarily overwhelmed by the shock of extreme joy. Human intuition is truly powerful. Back then, I hadn't guessed wrong. The charred body carried out of the warehouse that day was not Father. Thinking carefully, that body was burned beyond recognition. Just because of similar height and build, how could they have confirmed it was Father? That year, I told Mother my suspicion. Mother scolded me and changed the subject. Now, looking back, I can't help but feel Mother's reaction was a bit excessive. "Please wait a moment. Excuse me, I must interrupt." Hearing this, I couldn't help but speak up. "Ms. Joanna, I know you are truly an insider in this case. You've also provided some credible details, but that doesn't mean I will accept everything else you say based on it. I remind you, you must take responsibility for your words, you must provide evidence, otherwise, it's just a waste of both our time. I've just reviewed the entire case file. In this case, the victim is Shawn, and the defendant is your mother. The evidence is clear, and your mother has already pleaded guilty. Now you want to tell me that actually your mother didn't do it, but rather your father, who didn't die all those years ago and has been living in anonymity until now, committed the crime." Joanna said, "Attorney Luke, in this day and age in big cities, we all know that faking one's death is impossible. But try to imagine that was 1996, a remote mountainous town with no surveillance cameras, no DNA testing. If a person was burned beyond recognition, and assuming someone intentionally set it up, it could genuinely deceive the police's judgment." I asked, "So where is your father now?" I will continue my story first. That night, after the secret in the cellar, Mother told me everything. Everything originated from Father and the fireworks factory. Back then, Father's work at the fireworks factory was not going smoothly, and his relationship with other workers was also poor. But Father was educated and capable, working in a technical role, so Director Chen originally thought highly of him. At that time, the regulatory agency deemed fireworks production unsafe in the summer and issued a regulation to temporarily halt operations during the summer. But there were many businesses with external demand, orders constantly pouring in, and money to be made, which Director Chen couldn't bear. So, he sought out 3 or 4 trusted mid-level managers and technical workers, discussing with them to open small workshops outside, which he would support. Father was among them. Father didn't want to do this and politely declined. Director Chen didn't force him, but he wasn't a good person after all. He used Mother and me to threaten Father, telling him not to speak out. Father agreed and was subsequently removed from this project. Director Chen's plan was not delayed. He secretly supported and colluded with small workshops to achieve his goal of producing even in the summer. They experimented for one summer, and no incidents occurred, so they continued the next year. Father felt this was self-destructive and had even thought about dissuading them, but with the immediate profits of the fireworks factory, he knew persuasion would be futile. Moreover, Director Chen was too arrogant, already acting like a gangster, and this tendency was becoming more severe. Father was a family man and dared not get further involved with him. At that time, Father had a rather close colleague named Paul. Paul was very dissatisfied with the unlicensed and unsafe small workshops. He noticed that these workshops had existed for a long time without collapsing and thus realized a clue. He once asked Father, who claimed not to know but advised Paul not to get involved. Father's reaction, conversely, confirmed Paul's suspicions. Paul had no family, was unattached, and wasn't afraid. He secretly investigated, gradually uncovering the truth. He gathered sufficient documents and evidence, preparing to report them, and also made a backup copy, which he gave to my father for safekeeping. But he was unable to leave the district. The afternoon of the overflow warehouse explosion in November 1996 actually had premonitions. That was also a memory I had once forgotten. Now Mother had given it back to me. That afternoon, I was playing outside. Shawn passed by, gave me 2 small fireworks, and then handed me a piece of paper, telling me to give it to Father. The paper read that there was a batch of faulty products wrongly registered, and Father needed to check it that evening. At the time, I couldn't read and didn't understand the situation. I just thought Shawn was being kind by giving me fireworks. When Father came home from work, I gave him the paper. Father read it and went to the fireworks warehouse that evening, but he didn't expect it to be a trap. As soon as he entered the warehouse, he was knocked unconscious from behind. When he woke up, Father found himself lying on the ground, holding a bloody knife. Beside him was Paul's body, his throat cut. Father immediately understood. Paul had been unable to leave, he had been murdered. The other person wanted to frame Father. There was no need to think, it was definitely orchestrated by Director Chen. Director Chen knew Father and Paul were close, but suspected Father was also involved, so he had Shawn set up this scenario, intending to eliminate both of them at once. Mother discovered Father hadn't returned for a long time and worried, went out to look for him. When she reached the warehouse, she saw Father standing frozen, staring at the corpse on the ground. Mother was startled, but she believed Father wouldn't kill someone, so she quickly understood. There was no time to ponder causes and consequences. They had to immediately figure out how to escape completely, otherwise, the so-called witnesses at the scene, would be sent very quickly. Father saw the warehouse full of highly flammable and explosive materials, and also saw that Paul's height and build were similar to his own. In that critical moment, a bold idea struck him. He took off his clothes, shoes, and socks, put them on Paul's body, and then put on Paul's clothes himself. After that, he overturned the pile of fireworks in the warehouse. Some fireworks had leaking propellants and explosives. Even a cursory overturning would stir up the metal dust in the warehouse. After arranging everything, Father picked up that knife, and the 2 of them left the warehouse. He told Mother to quickly go home, then lit a cigarette and threw it through the warehouse's ventilation hole. That explosion was orchestrated entirely by my father. The charred body was not Father but Paul. In that emergency, Father couldn't think much. He could only escape first. Then Father left the town, under the cover of the spectacular fireworks display. Mother returned home, then took me out, feigning grief, and followed the crowd. Police carried a charred body from the accident scene. The body was blasted apart, so the stab wound was obscured, and it was burned beyond recognition, making identification very difficult. At that time, DNA testing was not widespread. Police could only rely on testimonies from various sources, the body's height and build, and perennial items like keys that weren't easily burned away, along with fabric scraps found at the scene, to identify the deceased. Director Chen and Shawn originally knew the truth, but for some reason they didn't reveal it. Everyone confirmed that the body was Father and Paul was missing. The matter ended there. At that time, I was too young, and my parents didn't want to involve me, so Father instructed Mother to keep it a secret from me. I suffered a huge shock from Father's death. Initially, I thought father had stolen fireworks for me. It wasn't until Shawn gave me a firework stick at the funeral that I remembered what happened that afternoon and realized that piece of paper had probably called father to the warehouse. I immediately screamed in agony at the funeral. Mother was afraid I would accuse Shawn, speaking out something that shouldn't be revealed, which would invite the Chen family's revenge. So she immediately hugged me tight, covering my mouth. Afterward, Mother also repeatedly warned me not to disclose that Shawn had asked me to deliver the paper that day. But my focus wasn't actually on Shawn, but on myself. If I hadn't taken the paper to father, he wouldn't have gone to the warehouse that night, nor would he have died. I was the one who harmed father. I felt guilty and blamed myself, unable to eat or sleep. Just as I managed to doze off, I would suddenly wake up in the middle of the night, hallucinating fireworks outside the window, then crying uncontrollably, as if a prolonged visual illusion. Mother, heartbroken for me, and to help me recover faster, self-studied psychology, using psychological suggestion on me day after day. At that time, I was only 5 years old. My brain wasn't fully developed, and I was prone to confusing dreams and reality. Mother suggested to me, telling me to regard the events that truly happened in real life as a dream, then added non-existent details, continuously reinforcing fictional elements to blur the original memory. Ultimately, I forgot many details of the day of the explosion. For example, before the explosion, Shawn had given me a piece of paper to deliver to father. For example, after the explosion, I saw Mother returning from outside, smelling of gunpowder. It would have been best to forget the explosion entirely, but this event was too shocking to me. It was deeply etched into my mind and could never be forgotten. Moreover, the explosion was a collective memory, not a personal one. Nominally, father had indeed passed away. Anyway, as my guilt towards father gradually lessened, I slowly recovered.